Right now at 6, why authorities say a major house fire that turned deadly in Washington County was so hard to put out. Plus,
I'm not intimidated by the federal government.
Oregon's Secretary of State responds to the Trump administration, threatening to prosecute election officials. Then,
this is where I think we're going to have to make some tough decisions.
how Beaverton's new school superintendent is dealing with a difficult budget and in his first week on the job.
and later taking a trip to the Oregon Zoo where this growing girl is getting a new toy that's just her size. Thanks for joining us. I'm Christine Pitawanich.
And I'm David Mulco. Our top story at 6. A Portland man will spend the next 20 years in prison after he intentionally set fire to his apartment complex. You might remember this troubling video from last July.
Prosecutors say neighbors heard him yelling racial slurs before the fire started. 2 people were seriously hurt as they tried to escape the flames. Devin Haskins has the update.
It's been almost a year since a massive fire burned this East Burnside apartment complex. At least 2 people were injured as several residents had their apartments destroyed.
To have something like that happen at 6 a.m. in the morning before you're even awake, it's very, very traumatizing.
Caroline Reyes said her son is still traumatized by what happened.
My 5-year-old still has nightmares because I had to wake him up first thing. I mean, luckily we were awake to get out of the fire and the danger. And we had seconds to get out. Our living room was completely burned up.
She and other residents woke up in the early morning hours on July 11th to flames with little to no way to escape.
When I went to my door, I opened my door and nothing was recognizable. It's just a wall of fire.
Portland police arrested Sean Swartz for intentionally setting the fire inside his apartment where he lived alone. Investigators also say Swartz targeted his neighbors, yelling racist comments.
It's hard to put words to it, but it is a traumatic event that will be with us for the rest of our lives.
Abraham Olmos Gonzalez says he's lived near Swartz for close to a decade and has made several complaints.
Multiple reports made with no avail, and to be honest, it's something that we always knew was going to happen. We just didn't know how it was going to happen.
And as the judge issued the 20-year sentence for assault, bias crimes, and arson, Swartz wiped his eyes, his lawyer saying he doesn't remember.
He pleaded no contest to the bias crime counts in order to resolve the case, but he doesn't remember having the mental intent to express bias against anybody for any reason.
Olmos Gonzalez said it was important for him to speak at the sentencing to represent his community and not be afraid to speak up about a day that will stick with him forever.
It's important that people that look like me show up and represent what the other side of that looks like, and not to be afraid, and to know that, I have a community that represents me. So it's important for me to be here. And it is hard. It's very challenging standing here talking about one of the worst days of your life.
In Southwest Portland, I'm Devin Haskins, KGW News.
In your headlines, a 68-year-old man is dead after a house fire in Cornelius. The blaze sparked around 8 this morning, not far from Cornelius Elementary, and shut down blocks of town for hours. Crews say the home in question is divided into apartments with a total of 6 residents, and the older construction made fighting those flames a challenge.
Fire spread into the second floor and in the attic, which is harder for us to put out because there's no fire stops in the walls. So it spread pretty quickly. We're able to get the fire out mostly, but it's in some hard to reach areas in the attic.
Always appreciate the work they do. Authorities have ID'd the resident who died as 68-year-old Jerome Milliken. Investigators are working to figure out the cause, though at this point they tell us they do not suspect arson.
We're working to learn more about a man who drowned in the Molalla River yesterday at Canby Community Park. We're told he went under while he was swimming in the river and was not wearing a life jacket. Someone got him out of the water and people tried to save his life, but he was unresponsive. The man's name has not yet been released.
To Marion County now, where an arrest led the ATF to uncover an arsenal of weapons, drugs, and what they believe was a steroid manufacturing operation. 47-year-old Michael Brassey was arrested Monday for violating a no-contact order. On Tuesday, detectives and the feds raided several locations they say were linked to him. That's when they allegedly found all this: more than 50 guns, several of them stolen, thousands of rounds of ammo, and 3D printers to make ghost guns, which are nearly impossible to trace. Authorities say they also seized psychedelic mushrooms, fentanyl, cocaine, and there is more, over 150 vials of anabolic steroids, along with manufacturing equipment.
And today, Portland City Council roundly rejected 2 appeals meant to save the Lloyd Center and its ice rink. The vote was 10-0 to keep the Lloyd Center master plan as is, which includes the demolition of the mall and rink. Advocates argued against Urban Renaissance Group's plan to redevelop the area, but councilors agreed it doesn't make sense to keep things the way they are now. A final vote is scheduled for the end of this month, and the mall is set to close to the public a month from today. Matt?
All right, Christine, thank you very much. Another beautiful day around the Northwest. Take a look at Astoria right now. We had clouds this morning. They cleared. We had clouds this morning in Portland, too, and they cleared. 63 at Astoria. Typical summer winds out of the northwest at 17. Oh, the Reserve Golf Course. I mean, can it get any better than this? Clear, blue sky, lazy, fair weather clouds out there. 79 degrees, low humidity, light winds. Just so good. And you know what? It just keeps on coming. Tomorrow, sunny and pleasant, very much like today. We get morning clouds on Friday and Saturday. That'll only serve to keep us a touch cooler. Super pleasant, super comfortable weather right on through Saturday, and we can add Sunday to that as well. Today's high was 80, right on the nose. That is average, right on the nose, so we did that. Medford 92. The hot spot is going to be the 97 down in Rome, Oregon today, but most of the state seeing cooler conditions today compared to yesterday, and clearer conditions too. Scattered clouds this morning in the valley. Those burned off. We got some clouds in Baker County right now. That's about it. Otherwise, it's looking really good for the rest of the week. Pleasant all week. Morning clouds, as I mentioned, Friday and Saturday. It'll get warmer next week, but not too much warmer. I'll show you how much warmer. And we'll take a look at that big super typhoon in the Western Pacific too, guys.
Okay, really loving the forecast locally. Thanks, Matt.
Developing this evening, while there is zero evidence of widespread election fraud, President Trump's DOJ has now sent letters to all 50 states warning they might criminally prosecute state election officials over non-citizen voting.
Celine Stevens is live at the Multnomah County Elections Division with more on what this means and how state officials are pushing back. Celine.
David, Christine, so I heard from Oregon's Secretary of State Tobias Reed today, who described the letter that he received yesterday as laughable. Now, the Trump administration has portrayed non-citizen voting to be a widespread issue, but those I spoke with say that's not true.
And I just sort of smile because, Oregon's elections are safe and accurate and fair.
Letters from the Department of Justice sent to all 50 states and the District of Columbia, warning of potential criminal penalties for election officials who fail to carry out their duties properly when it comes to non-citizen voting.
I think this is just another desperate kind of performative episode from the federal government that is continuing to try to justify their baseless conspiracy theories and searching for election fraud that doesn't exist.
The letter, including a list of federal law requirements for state and local election officials.
Voting is what we do to hold politicians and government accountable. And I think this president knows that his policies and his administration are not popular. And I think he fears the accountability that an election represents.
The document also stating that an election officer could be criminally liable for aiding and abetting those provisions or knowingly including non-citizens on the state voter registration list.
I'm not intimidated by the federal government. I am not afraid of this kind of manufactured controversy.
A statement from the Department of Justice states they are asking for voluntary compliance in a timely manner with their obligations under federal law to ensure only citizens vote in federal elections. Lewis and Clark Law School professor Tung Yin says non-citizen voting is not as widespread as the president has made it seem.
All the studies that I've seen have suggested that it's as far as we could tell, a very, 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 very tiny fraction of all votes cast would be potentially disqualifiable.
When it comes to the reality of successfully criminally prosecuting election officials,
it's not enough to say that, hey, you know what, we scoured the records and we found that there were 2 or 3 or whatever number of people who shouldn't have been allowed to vote who voted. It has to be that the election official knowingly and willfully allowed this to happen.
The letter also asks for states' responses within 5 days regarding how they intend to comply with federal laws.
If we choose to send something directly back to them, is going to be largely a version of what I'm saying to you today is we do our job. Thanks for reminding us of the federal law, which we follow. We will remind them perhaps as well of their continued efforts to go beyond their authority.
Now, Professor Yin also made a point to mention that, of course, while the administration can try to prosecute an official for all this, it's a matter of if they will be successful or not, given that they have to prove any violation was done knowingly and willfully. And, of course, the courts are likely to try and fight back as well. Back to you.
Celine Stevens reporting live outside the Multnomah County Elections Division. Thank you, Celine.
To a unique commemoration, you might say unites us all, 4 days after America celebrated its 250th birthday. We're talking about a simultaneous reading of the Declaration of Independence. I got it right here. They give us big print because I can't read that. Across all 50 states plus D.C. and 5 U.S. territories. It is 9 time zones, including here in Oregon. This afternoon, I joined my fellow anchors from across town, some of our elected leaders and judges on all levels at the Oregon Historical Society. Why today? Well, it turns out July 8th, 1776 is the first time the Declaration was read publicly, and in Philadelphia, all 1,320 words. It's much more than that Jeffersonian cornerstone we're all familiar with: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Take a listen.
These colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states.
The original Parchment Declaration has had many homes, including the State Department, the U.S. Patent Office, the Library of Congress, and even for 3 years during World War II, Fort Knox.
The country can move up and down, but always forward. And I like the idea that we're never going to achieve the perfect union, but we're always trying to make it more perfect.
A more perfect union. Secretary of State's Bias Reid, along with federal judge Adrian Nelson there. And a little bit of Declaration trivia. 2 of the signers went on to become President of the United States. Not George Washington, but number 2 and number 3. They are John Adams and Thomas Jefferson.
So cool that you were able to be a part of that simultaneous
Part of history,
yeah,
right?
What a special moment.